Yeah, I think if you just allocate some time to doing your work, like maybe an hour a day or an hour or 2 days, you know what I mean? Just so you feel like you're making progress, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heather, what's been going on?
I started reading Create the Future.
Cool.
Yeah, I feel like really cooped up. But I've been feeling like not as productive as I could be. I've been showing up for the shows that I've been doing on Twitch, and gaining confidence in, directing people to the fact that there's like a tribute button and that I'm doing, trying to create a group, and I just need to start like rehearsing that in the mirror or something, because I feel like I'm not saying it with enough confidence.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. If you want to role play on tonight's call, we can do that if you want.
Okay.
Practice. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Ross, how's it been going?
Yeah, I've had a pretty good week as well, thank you.
Good.
I finished reading the book Deep Work.
Brilliant.
Yeah, found that really good. Then this week I've been working on putting content together for my website.
Good.
Finishing off the About Me section. A lot of things we spoke about in last week's call were quite useful to help me work on that.
Good.
Another thing I found pretty useful this week was on our Facebook group, Rob put a post there and he was like, on the verge of between breakdown and breakthrough. And like you replied to that in such detail that like I really took a lot from that. That was like, wow, because I saw myself in his shoes, and I'm sure anyone else that read that can put themselves in his shoes and benefit from like the feedback you gave him about don't despair, because this shows that like the fruits are going to come, and you're planting the seed and the tree will eventually appear, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that was quite powerful for me. I really enjoyed reading that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So today on the call earlier, that's what our main focus was. So it's good that you're saying that, because that's going to be our focus tonight. And I think that it's such an important point that doesn't get spoken about. You know, when you're on that verge of, of something new happening and you're just not aware of like where you are in your stage. And sometimes you can feel like you're not getting anywhere. And like this whole thing about feeling the need to be recognized so that you feel like you're making progress. Do you know what I'm saying? And the thing is, it's like you're looking in the wrong place. Do you know what I mean? You're looking in the wrong place for confirmation of the fruits of your labor, right? Furthermore, you shouldn't even be looking, right? And it's that whole thing where you plant a seed in the ground and then you're like, 5 minutes later, you dig it up. Is it grown yet? Oh, I'm gonna, plant. Then give it some water. And 5 minutes later, is it grown yet? Oh, no. Plant. It's like, like my son his mum gave him some sunflower seeds for part of his school stuff to plant, right? And he planted them and he just went about his business, right? And me and his mum, listen, I was more curious to see how they would grow, and I was watching them every day. And they sprouted, and they were these little things. I was like, wow. And I was like, wow, right? And then the other day I looked at them, and they're like this big in a week, right? And I'm like, fucking hell, that shit is... But I'm like seeing it from this whole growth thing, right? From a seed to this plant. And like my missus goes the other day, oh, they're going to be huge, bigger than coffee, and you can eat the seeds. I was like, really? And I'm like, I'm fascinated by the whole process. And so this is the metaphor. Like, don't stand there waiting to get the pat on the shoulder. Keep moving forward, right? It's not the reason why you're doing it. You don't want someone to. You're not doing it for someone to say it's working. You're just doing it because you're doing it. It's on point. It's on mission. When people notice it, right? Thank you, right? And then move on. That's the mission. Move on. That's the mission. I think what's really powerful about what Rob pointed out was like this whole idea about how things have shifted for him. Like, you know, he's relying on this feedback. He was fed up. He's at the point of breaking and giving up. It's like classic signs of success, right? That go hidden, that no one talks about, that isn't like, you know, and the whole Instagram, you know, memes and posters that only tell you about the good aspects. They miss out all this stuff that we really need to know. Do you know what I'm saying? We really need to know what happens when you're about to give up. What happens when you've tried everything and you're failing every fucking day and you suck? What do you do then? You know, you'll get a 30 grand watch. It's like, that doesn't help. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it's like this whole, you know, this openness that we need to have that tells us, look, it's tough to live your dreams, right? But you can do it. And to expect anything other than it being a challenge is not realistic, right? If you're serious about your growth and about getting to this next level, you got to be prepared to get in the trenches and do whatever is necessary. And it's going to be different every day. And some days you're going to be sliding down the mud and it's going to go, wee! And other days you're going to be climbing up the mud and it's going to be, you're just going to be spinning your wheels because there's not going to be any traction. But that's how it's going to seem to you, right? That's what it will seem like to you. What's really going on though is these micro visions, these micro measurements are happening. They're so small and minute, you can't notice them, right? And if you've ever done anything like a training regime, lost weight, you know, hadn't seen people for ages, and then all of a sudden you see people and they're looking at you and like, something's different about you, right? And they haven't seen you for maybe 2 or 3 months and like, what's different about you? And they can't work it out. And to you, it doesn't feel like any change, but to them, they haven't seen you for ages, but they notice stuff. That's what this is about. The beautiful thing I liked about what happened to Rob is he actually believes he's not making progress because nobody else is seeing it, right? The question he should be asking is where or who out there is noticing this progress, right? It's a different question because the obvious people around you won't necessarily tell you you're making progress for obvious reasons, right? The first group of people you're around when you stretch and you grow, they won't support that necessarily because they're feeling like you're leaving them. They're feeling like you're outgrowing them. They're feeling like they're being left behind. They might have to figure out, if they want to stay with you, they might have to upgrade their thinking as well, but they might not want to. So what do we do? And what do we do when we don't want someone to leave? What do we do?
Ask them to stay.
Yeah. Convince them to stay.
We don't ask them to stay.
Beg. Manipulate them. No, I'm just kidding.
Hold them back.
Start crying.
Yeah.
Right? We sabotage them unconsciously or consciously, right? And it's not out of malice, it's out of fear. Because we don't want to feel that loneliness. We don't want to feel left behind. But we don't want to do the work to get us to that next level. It seems us too much, it's too hard. Why should I do that work? Well, I'm not going to let you go. I'm going to ride on your coattails. It's way easier. And then that person will let you ride for a minute because they don't want you to go. But after a while, they'll start to wake up thinking, well, why am I doing all the work and you're receiving all the benefits from what I'm doing as well? And then you wake up. So there's these mindset shifts so before we get into this, is there any questions that anyone wants to ask, and we can just deal with this before we dive into the main subject of this evening's conversation?
No question from me.
Yeah, I haven't any at the moment.
No? Okay.
Yeah, I get them and then they go again. So
Write them down.
yeah, I need to write them down.
Yeah. Okay, so what was it? So V, did you read Rob's post?
I didn't read it.
Right. So basically, Rob was on the verge of having a breakdown, but from another perspective, it's almost like it's a breakthrough. So there's this idea that in order to go to the next level, whatever that next level is, you will not do it as the person you are now. And this is quite common in sort of personal development. When you're ready to get to that next level, a breakdown has to happen. But the breakdown is really a breakthrough. It's saying that this person is not built to handle the next level, what's required. So therefore, I'm going to break this old version down and then rebuild you in the new version, the new improved version, so that this new improved version can handle whatever needs to happen at this higher level. Because at the next level, so at every level, there's a different mindset that's needed to be required for you to be able to grow. And it's always about a level of learning, a level of growth, and a level of experience. And you can't cheat these levels, because if you cheat the levels, I mean, if you try and cheat the levels, what tends to happen is that you'll be put into a position that you are not ready for. You just won't be ready to deal with it, and you'll crumble and you'll fall. And it might be something that could be quite detrimental to your career, to you personally. Sometimes I've seen people, perform in front of people when they just weren't ready, and they completely froze and they couldn't rescue the set. And I've worked with someone like that, and they never went back to music. And by the time I met them, it was 16 years later, right? And that's because they weren't prepared. They didn't do the work properly. They just went from, almost like playing in the bedroom to playing in front of 2,000 people. Complete nervous, not breakdown, but a rush of energy straight into the nervous system. Breakdown, couldn't cope. There's no strategy there. There's never been in that position before. So when the nerves kicked in, there was no strategy to calm themselves down and carry on with the show. And so we build that up with baby steps. The same thing with building your career. The same thing with growing yourself as a brand, as an artist. The same thing as getting signed to the majors. The same thing as going on tour. There's just steps that you have to go through that you can't get away from. And these steps, they seem like, in the beginning, it seems like you're having a breakdown. But what all that's happening is, not all what's happening, I don't want to belittle it and make it sound like it's less than it actually is, but what's happening is there's a complete understanding of where you are now. It starts to erode. You start to see the reality of the situation you're in. You start to realize the people around you, God bless them, they just don't get what I'm trying to achieve. So I have to let them go. So I need to now hang around with people who think on this next level in order for me to grow. So I need to be around these people. And the analogy I used earlier on today is, if you want to be a professional footballer, don't hang around and playing football on the Sunday league, right? You'll learn a little bit, but you need to find the pro footballers who do this for a living, because their diet's different, their exercise regime's different, the way they talk and communicate's different, the places they buy their kit is a totally different place. And it's a language that you have to learn and buy into, and the culture is very different. And you can't learn that by reading books. You can't learn that by watching DVDs. You can't learn that by chatting to your mate in the pub. You have to be around the people doing it, living it, breathing it. And you use something called osmosis, which means you learn by being around those people. And it's unconscious. So you pick up mannerisms. You pick up, words, sayings. You ever see, there's a Woody Allen film, quite a famous Woody Allen film, where he turns up in these situations. It's really funny, but he turns up in this mafia family and he's fat, like one of the mafia guys. And then, later on in the film, he turns up in a black family and he's black. You know what I mean? And then later on in the film, he turns up, in this Jew family. It's like, and in the end of the film, they interview him and, and it's like, because it's like this life story this guy's saying is, why was you changing so much because I just wanted to belong. And so the whole story was about belonging. And that's the human condition, right? You want to belong, but to belong, you have to be part of the culture, part of the crew, part of something that the people around you recognize. To do that, you have to give up where you are now. Right? You have to give up where you are now. That is going to be one of the hardest things you will achieve. And the higher you go up, the higher you will have these challenges, because at every level, there's going to be levels of experience, people who will know how to operate on that level. They become less and less and less and less and less because of the skill set and the demands on you that's required. I'm jumping ahead. So why do we feel like it's really hard for us to let go of this old way of thinking, this old mindset? Our attachments to what we believe. We have these attachments. We're saying, you know, that this is more comfortable for me to be in than to take on the work to do what's next. It's too challenging. It's too hard. I can't do it. The language is built on around it. Ross, when you read what was going on, what did you feel?
Well, I could feel what Rob was saying. He was very, very, like, he was deep. He was explaining it on so many different levels, different things he's going through. Like, this is going on with my family. I feel like giving up. I'm depressed. I can't break through. I'm getting no recognition. Yeah. It was just pain, 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 so much pain. Yeah. So much pain. But your reply was just understanding the pain, but helping him to shift the perspective. That was the main thing. Like, the main thing I took away from that is, like, don't just focus on the negative and focus on the lack of this or the lack of that or the lack of results. It was like, shift your perspective to understand that it's part of a process. That was the major thing that I took away from reading that. Yeah.
And it's like, it's a necessary process. You know, it's necessary. Here's the thing about whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. So Scott, you did this afternoon, and Elma, you did it as well. So I got everybody to think about a goal. Like, what is the goal that you're trying to achieve? And this goal has to be big, right? A big, hairy, audacious goal, we call it a BHAG, right? Like, what is this goal that you're going for? And if you know that, if you've set yourself a challenge, but you know how to do it, that's not the goal we're after on this session right now. I want you to think about a goal that when you think about it, you get nervous, you get scared, you're getting agitated. So have a few minutes to think about what this goal is. Maybe you've already thought about it. Maybe you thought about it and dismissed it, but spend a few minutes just thinking about what this goal is. And let me speak to Scott and Elma just to see how they've been feeling since this afternoon's call.
Do you want to go, Scott?
Yeah, all right. Okay, so yeah, really good session this afternoon. And yeah, for me, it's I need to get a little bit more clear with my goal. I've realised that, and I think that's not holding me back as such. Obviously, it is, but yeah, I really do relate to Rob as well. I've been through some shit in the past and had a bit of a breakdown in the past as well. So yeah, I could really relate to that. And the reply that you gave, Rob, as well, yeah, same as Ross, I took a lot from that. So yeah, I've come up with goals, and I thought that goal was a little bit too big. So as you said, get something that's a bit more manageable. So that's what I am trying to do, or that's what I'm doing at the moment. So
a big goal can be broken down into smaller goals. So even if it is a big, huge goal, I would just break it down into other goals.
Right.
listen, the big goal, was it a dream? Does it come to you in inspiration, or was it just like,
Yeah.
you got to figure out how to achieve it?
Right. Yeah, it came through meditation and
so it's not too big then.
Right.
It's just figuring out what are the steps to accomplish it.
Okay.
So, unless it's going to the moon, right? I don't think it's that big. Whatever it is, it could be like like for me, play Madison Square Gardens. I don't know how to do that yet, right? But it could be done. And, I reckon I got, another 40, 50 years if I'm lucky. I think I could achieve it in the next 20.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm pretty close. I've done some big things. I know some big people. I know a couple of big managers. It's like, I've just finished the album that potentially get a lot of notice and notoriety. And it's like, it's a game of chess, right? You gotta kind of like, there is this kind of belief that you kind of got to have that kind of defies logic in a way. Do you know what I mean? You kind of got to get used to having this stubborn belief in yourself. And I get it. It takes a little bit of it takes a while to exercise it and to believe it and to know it. But that comes with practice. That comes with the visualizations. That comes with the morning rituals. The next stage on is to have that vision in your meditations from now on, and ask these questions. How do I do this? Who's the person I need to talk to? What's the first step that I need to do to make this happen? Remember, it's not all of it in one go. It's what's the first step? What's the one thing I need to do tomorrow? Right? Tony Robinson taught me this one thing, right? And he said, whenever you go into these meditations and you do these goal setting visualization exercises, and you have the one piece of inspiration, his advice is never leave that scene without figuring out what the first action is. So you saw the vision. What's the next thing I need to do? Write it down. Great. What's the next thing I need to do? Email that person that knows that other person. Okay, well, email them. They see what they know. Tell them you were planning a project, and then then what's the next thing? Well, that didn't pan out. Or what's the next? Oh, you know what? I know somebody. Or while I'm on the email or talking to that person on the phone, if you can't help me, do you know somebody who can? Do you know anybody that's gonna, right? And so, my famous trick is ask people you don't think who can help you. It's a really weird one, but trust me, it's like, like today when we said that whole thing about good things coming from bad things coming from good things, we're labeling what we think is going to happen. We're saying that the only way I'm going to get success is from following this particular path. It's like, nah, who's seen that diagram, that image of success? We posted it the other day, right? Did anyone see that? Where people think success is this, steady stairway thing going up. But really success is the mad ball of wool. Tangled wool. It's just this tanglement of just stuff. And it's like, it's totally unpredictable. It's totally confusing. It's totally, unrealistic, unexpected. And so that is the reality of what all this stuff's about. Somehow we've got it in our minds, and society plays this trick on us. Somehow we've got it in our mind that success, if we just do A, B, C, and D, E, F, D is going to happen. It's like, nah, it's not. What you got to do is have a plan, put it into motion, and watch how it explodes on impact. And then your job now is to sift through the rubble and keep sifting through until you get to the other side. And then what you do is you remember the experience of what that was like, and then you look in front of you and you just see another explosion ready to go off, and you go, oh, fucking hell, still not there. Let's go through that one. But now you've got the skills because you've already been through one. So you're going to go through that one now with these skills a little bit easier. You're going to have a little bit more discernment. Well, I've seen someone like you before and you didn't really help me that time. So I think I'm going to bypass your offer this time. Thank you. And my instincts were right. I should have stuck to my guns. I'm going to stick to my guns this time. Oh yeah, and that worked. And I'm going to try that thing over there this time. And I'm just going to try it my way this time because something's telling me to do it that way. I don't quite know why, but I'm just going to follow it. And oh yeah, well that worked. That's different. I didn't expect that to happen. Okay, now I'm here. Oh, well, what do I do? Well, okay, well, that looks interesting over there. Let me go over there. And it's like, there isn't like a set blueprint, a set way to do it. It's this thing. And this is the trick, right? Everybody instinctively does this. Right? If you think about your life, how you've lived your life, there's been moments when you've had to make a decision where it was instinctual. It was just the thing you felt right and you knew you had to do, and you did it and it worked. You didn't judge it. You didn't analyze it. You just felt this feeling and you followed it through and it worked, right? This is the same thing. For some reason, building our careers, our lives, or our businesses are steeped in this mystery that people don't talk about. And when they do, they make it sound like it's really too hard to actually achieve, or it was so easy to achieve, right? And they leave out all the juicy bits, which is how much, failing they did, or how difficult it was, or when they ran out of money, what did they do? Or they couldn't raise the money, what did they do? Or, people didn't believe in them, so they had to leave town and go to another town. It's like all this stuff gets missed out because it doesn't sell books. It doesn't look good on an Instagram quote. Do you know what I mean? It's not sexy. So people think, oh, I'm not going to do that. It's not going to get me any fans. Like, we need to know what that is. Right? You need to know what that thinking is. So you guys, with the BHAGs, you got something big, hairy, and audacious and scary when you think about it. You don't have to share it. It's just for you. But it's just to illustrate what we're going to be talking about, the importance of having this, I would say it's got to be unrealistic, right? So this afternoon, someone has said, is my goal, does it need to be, someone said that my goal needs to be realistic. I'm like, then you know how to do it. It's not really a goal. If you set yourself a goal and it's realistic, it's not really a goal. You know how to do it on some level. You already thought about it and you probably know how to do it. The reason we have goals, why do we have goals?
Like to help us move forwards.
Yeah, to grow.
To grow, yeah.
To get what we want.
Yeah.
Momentum.
Yeah.
Productivity.
Yeah.
Mark out the pathway to the bigger goal.
What was that?
I was gonna say to have a focus, like, so that if you have a goal, then whatever actions you take every day are something to that end, or like you're thinking about.
I mean, you're all right. You're all right. How I feel and think about goals is, for me, it's about becoming the person that can actually achieve the goal, right? The challenge is in life is to be able to feel like you're making progress. When you don't feel like you're making progress, that's one of the demoralizing feelings that we can experience, right? So in the Rob's thing today is comments. What we were reading, right, was a lot of frustration, and a few people in this afternoon, and probably yourselves, you felt like this frustration. Where does the frustration come from? Not feeling like you're moving forward. You feel stuck. You're not making progress. You feel frustrated. Someone said this afternoon they felt angry at themselves. They kept having to go at themselves because they didn't know how to get to that next level, right? And this is the point of this whole thing. It's like you can't get to that next level because you don't know what you don't know, what you don't know, right? So there's this invisible force that's in your face, but you don't know what you don't know, what you don't know. So how can you get through it? And it's nothing physical. It's a mental construct. It's this idea, right? So you think, I'll just keep moving, right? But the same thing actually happens. And so now you're mistaking, you know, for progress, right? You just keep moving, keep doing stuff, but you're actually not making progress, and you're getting fed up, frustrated and tired because you're not getting to this next place. So more and more frustration kicks in, and then you get into something they call the crazy eight, right? And the crazy eight is, you know, you feel all right, you try to make a goal happen, the goal doesn't happen, you fall back into a pattern of frustration, anger, fear, guilt, hate, whatever, and then somehow it gets resolved, but you don't actually get to the next level. You probably just take a step back or take something easier, an easier option to make yourself feel good, but it doesn't really change anything. And now you feel good again, but now you realize you actually haven't made any progress. And then you're back to this point again, thinking, I've got to move on. But so you're stuck in this crazy eight loop. You just go from one point to the other, around and around and around. And so the way to get out of that is to take a step back. And first of all, the awareness to understand that that's happening is huge, right? So what you don't know, you don't know, you don't know, right? And it's a bit of a mind fuck, but it's very, very serious, because it denotes the levels of competency, the levels of awareness that you were able to understand at that present time. So when you don't know, you don't know, you don't know, you have a blind spot, therefore you'll keep on doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different outcome, which is the definition of madness, according to Einstein. That's where the frustration comes from. You're doing the same pattern over and over again, and nothing changes, right?
Something I find really hard with goal setting is actually like I think I've been doing the figure of eight thing for a while, because I'm still achieving some things, but then I'll get a goal and I might say, okay, I want to do a degree in music or music therapy. So then I apply for that and I research it, and then I start to, whilst I'm going through those months of everything happening to set it up, I start to realize like, oh, actually, like I'm getting drawn somewhere else, and that's not the goal I wanted. So then I'll go and do something else, or like a job opportunity came up. So I was doing a lot of extras work last year, and I had a lot of work on one show. So that just took up all my time. But then I was like, oh, well, you know, that's fine. I can do that now, and I won't do my album and I won't go to university. I'll just do that. But I keep on getting the same loop happening, you know, where I want to find a goal, and like I want to find, like I've got a lot of goals, but the ones that make me really uncomfortable are like, you know, like some sort of mania goal, you know, of like trying to change the whole like healthcare system, or, you know, I've got this cafe business plan that I wrote up years ago, and that all fell through at one point. And then, you know, all this other stuff, and I don't really know how to set a goal. So I find that a really hard question, like actually how to set a goal and then to keep at it, and to really understand that that's really truly what you want, especially if it's challenging.
Yeah, the reason why some people get distracted or allow themselves to get distracted, because the original goal seems impossible. And so remember, when we want to feel like we're making progress, we will reduce the goal so that we can feel the satisfaction of actually moving forward. That diminishes your power overall, because what you've said is, on some level, and this is what's been programmed into your subconscious mind, that this is what happens. Whenever a difficult challenge happens, I retreat. And that's the program you're programming yourself to live by. So that first time you retreated, the subconscious mind said, well, that's just once. The second time you do it, the subconscious mind says, I'm sensing a pattern here. The third time you do it, subconscious mind says, okay, I get it. Whenever you feel threatened, this is what we'll do. We'll just diminish it. We'll go back. At some point, you will have to face that fear head on, right? And go through it to actually mentally, physically, and spiritually understand what it's like to be on the other side. Because your greatest lesson is on the other side of you accomplishing the thing that you most fear at the moment. And so whatever that thing is you most fear that's holding you back, that you are imagining is worse than where it is now, is your challenge. And it's not even the goal, because the goal now is to show you what you're capable of. But every time you get close to realizing what you're capable of, you retreat. And that's the pattern that you're trying to overcome at the moment. This is what you're trying to understand. This is what you're trying to verbalize now and say to yourself, why is this happening to me? Well, it's happening to you because when you get to the door, you don't open it. And in your mind's eye, you're saying that behind this door is worse than where I am now. That's what's going on. The mind is making a picture and it's saying, so your album that you were going to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, I've actually got like 3 albums, but I've got like a saxophone one, which would be like a compilation, but I've sort of started thinking more about making, like, you know, having a certain style for that, but that would just be basically a saxophone album. And then I've got loads of acoustic singer-songwriter stuff, and I literally dreamed up like the whole, like a music video, and like, you know, it was everything, like a whole concept behind the whole album that like tied all the songs together. And I dreamt that up like 10 years ago, and I still haven't done that either.
Okay, so stop.
Yeah, because everything else just takes me there, takes me here,
Okay.
or I haven't got the recording equipment, you know.
Yeah, it's cool. I get it. But just as I'm listening to you talk, it's like, it's almost like you know you're not going to do it. And so you're doing lots more things. Like you said, I've got an album, but I've got 3 albums. So when I hear that, that's classic avoidance.
Is it? Because
Yeah.
it's sort of like I've got a meditation album as well that I really, it's like things I really want to do, you know.
That's
and
cool.
I've got the tools for it now. I'm just
Cool. What is the order you're going to do them in?
I was just going to do them as they come, like how I feel, you know.
Okay, so I'm just going to repeat what you said. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm your coach, and as your coach, I'm gonna feed back, because this is the part that's unconscious. This is the I don't know what I don't know what I don't know part. This is where it manifests. This is how clear it is, or unclear. To me, when I'm hearing it, it's very clear what's going on. But to you, when you're saying it seems like you're actually moving towards it or thinking about it. But thinking about it is not action in it.
No.
So that's the bit that we need to discuss. That's the bit that needs to be brought into the light. And that's the bit that, as I'm saying it to you, what are you feeling?
A bit like you're telling me off.
No. The feeling that is taking you 10 years, what's the feeling in that?
Like a bit of like embarrassment, really. I feel a bit ashamed when you just said that back to me. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, right? But
yeah.
In that, there's a belief, there's a pattern, and there's a habit.
Yeah.
So where else does this occur in your life?
What, this sort of thing?
Putting stuff off.
Well, I think I do that a lot, because I will just sort of every year something else will come up and I'll get a new opportunity, or you know, so it's been, I don't know, I don't have that much consistency in my lifestyle. So I think that's probably, in most parts, actually. That's why I'm here, because I'm very inconsistent.
Yeah. And in my field, when what we know is how you do one thing is how you do everything. That's why I asked you, because this isn't about you not finishing the music. This is a pattern that happens in your life. right? So the question I would ask you next is, imagine you finish this first album, what would change in your life?
I guess like I would be quite proud, and I'd have a product finally that I could really, that's my own, that I could share.
Okay. Who wouldn't be happy?
People that don't like my music.
Who around you that's really close to you wouldn't be happy?
Nobody.
So everybody around you would be happy.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone supports my music. What? What? Say something.
I'm trying to listen into where the pattern is for the behavior. That's because once we tap into it, I just need one nugget. There's a reason that you really want to move forward, but you're finding a way to hold yourself back. And it's to keep yourself comfortable, because to go to that next level, it brings up a fear of that life is going to be uncomfortable, that maybe you're not going to be supported, that maybe your friends might not appreciate you, that maybe, you know, you'll lose touch with some part of you that you rely on to get results, right? So there's just this pattern that plays out, and it comes up in the most, you know, what's the word? It comes up when you least expect it. And so I'm just trying to probe. I could go a lot deeper, but I don't think this is the right time to do it. But I'm just trying to figure out where in your growth have you had resistance like this before, and no one's helped you?
I think I've never ever had to make any decisions, and every decision I've made, I've always been a bit dubious about whether that was the right one. So I've grown up never making decisions for myself, and then suddenly I've got to go to university, or that's when I got offered that jazz thing by my uncle. But I was 16 when he offered that to me, and do you know what I mean? I can't make decisions. I don't know.
Okay, bingo.
Yeah, I think that's
There
it.
you go. Okay.
Yay, less spontaneous, and it sounds like fun.
So when you make a decision, sorry guys, I just got to finish this a minute, but when you make a decision, what tends to happen?
Yeah, then I'd say that like there's a lot of fun, but also a lot of challenges, and then maybe I doubt my decision making.
Right.
I think.
I get it now. So that's the pattern. There's an idea that the decision you make might not be the best decision for you.
Yeah, I think that's it, really. Yeah, like what do I dedicate the rest of my life to? You know, do I do that? Oh no, or maybe I shouldn't do that. I don't know. How do I know?
Thank you. I get it now. So now, right? So that's how it happens, right? And it's that simple, that the conversation inside your own head is saying, I wonder if I've made the best decision. Therefore, you're not putting all of your energy into the decision that you've made, right? And so you're always going to be second guessing. Should I do this? Should I do that? Is this going to work? Is that going to work? So you'll never go for the big goal, because if the big goal is going to do the same thing, well, if I go for the big goal, is it the right decision? Okay, thank you for that. That's very helpful.
Okay, so thank you.
So can you all see a little bit of that decision-making process in yourself, and where and when you might feel like you're making a decision or something that's going to, because what's going on is not necessarily the decision that's the problem. The problem that we have is thinking, what's going to be the consequences of going the wrong way? That's what we think about. Remember what I spoke about last week? Humans are programmed to look for negative outcomes all the time because it's a survival trait. So we're looking to survive. We're not looking to thrive. So I'm going to make a decision, one that's going to help me survive. That's why we don't take, that's why when I said make that big, audacious, hairy goal, everyone went, ooh. And it's the same thing on this afternoon on the call. When I said that, everyone make the big goal, went, ooh. There was this kind of shudder, this nervousness. Oh, I've got to make a big goal. Because deep down inside, right, we've all failed. We've all failed, and we all know what that feels like. And we will do anything not to feel that feeling again, including not going for that big goal. So we don't set it. So you keep setting these goals that are achievable. You keep doing things that are achievable, but they're not satisfying. They don't give you that deep sense of, fuck, I just nailed that. You just don't get that feeling. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you know, it's all right. I just did it. It's what I've, you know. And the decision, the mindset that you're going to shift so that you can create this outcome that you want is a quantum leap. Right? It's a tiny shift. It's not huge. It's a tiny shift that you'll practice every single day. Right? And it's a muscle memory of seeing yourself accomplishing this challenge. It's seeing yourself saying you want this big, unattainable goal every single day, noticing what's going on in your nervous system, writing it down, journal it, right? The only reason you have the reaction you have is because you haven't practiced it every day. And the impact on your nervous system is so new, so raw, and so fresh that of course it's going to reject it. Why should I, in your subconscious mind saying, why should I entertain this idea? I've never heard it before. No, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to give you that. And then you say, okay, I understand this is new, but what's the smallest thing that we can do on this goal to make it happen? And the subconscious mind says, oh, that's not a risk. I'll help you. Because the big goal, it will totally panic and freak out. But when you say, what's the smallest part of the goal? It'll say, okay, I can work with that. That doesn't seem like a challenge. That doesn't seem like a problem. That doesn't seem like that's a threat to me. And I'll give you a name. Go and talk to this guy. Go and talk to this woman. Or play this note into your computer. Or read this book. And it'll give you the tiniest piece of information you need, the tiniest piece of nugget, just enough so you can figure out what to do next. And it's like a raindrop that drops on a mountain and it rolls down. The raindrop's a tiny little raindrop, but it trickles down into a stream with a little drizzle, trickles into a stream. Then it becomes a river. And then the river finds a lake. And then the lake goes on to an even bigger river. And then the river eventually goes on to the sea. That's what this is about, right? And you can't hold the sea in your hand, but you can hold the raindrop in your hand, right? It's tiny little idea, and you can deal with that, right? So start there. Start there. It's a very simple concept. Start with what you do know. Start with what you have got, right? And then concentrate all of your energy on this one task, right? And know that you will fail, but don't call it failing, right? Call it progress. Because that's what it is. When you were little and you were learning to walk, your parents didn't point the finger at you every time you fell down. Oh, look at you, failure. Look, Mum, he's failing again. Right? That never happened. They were like, oh my God, look, he's trying to walk. Look, he's crawling backwards. Isn't that great? It's like, when my son learned to walk, he was crawling backwards. And me and my missus were standing there like, oh my God, that's amazing. It's like it's blowing our minds. Like, he's crawling backwards. How amazing. It's like, you know, and it's like, do you know what I mean? That was progress. At least he was moving. He wasn't just sitting there pointing. Now he was actually moving. Backwards is best. It's good. I accepted it. It's great. You know, eventually he was going to get to forward, and he did. 2 weeks later, he started going forward, and it was like, yeah, result, you know. And then a month later, he was holding on to stuff. He was like, yeah, I can see it. And so that's what we're dealing with here. It's like progress. What is the progress? So Has everybody got a goal? Everyone written down something, a goal? Yes, no, yes, no? Yeah? I want you to say this out loud. What is the one baby step that you could take tomorrow that's going to feel like you're making progress? What's the one baby step? Anybody? Just one baby step.
Online promotion.
Online promotion, brilliant. Great.
Make a phone call.
Make a phone call, great.
Yeah, write another track.
Write another track, great.
I think I need to just keep practicing.
We're gonna try and kind of keep the events in this space going.
Announce
Something
like a
fun.
5-day
If we can ever
challenge
do,
to invite people
like hidden
to
drops. It was a little
my
last minute when
private
we
art
brought it
group
up to the team now.
for the people.
Okay, someone's playing something like...
Yeah.
I think this is my boyfriend's talking at the same time, so I'll just wait.
Okay. V.
I was just saying the next step for me is more practice.
Good. How achievable is that, what you just said?
It's very achievable with the right mindset.
Yeah. And so whatever you guys said is the right thing to do next. And so then when you've done that, it's like you spend 2 days doing that, and then you reassess the plan. Listen, everybody who has a plan, right? The reason they have a plan is so that they can get back on track when they know that they're going to go off track. That's why you have a plan. So you can look at it and see where you're making progress or not. Right, I said I was going to do this by this date. How am I doing? Am I close or am I far? Well, I'm far. Well, this is where I should be, so I'm going to get back over here. That's why we have a plan, so we can look visually at the plan, right? We know we're not going to stick to a plan. Listen, I'll be the first to admit, I do not stick to plans. Never. Never, ever, ever, never. I've never stuck to a plan. I make goals, I make maps, I make fucking plans, I tell everybody, and then the next day I do something completely different. Every single time. And then a week later, I come back and say, where have you been, dude? I get my books out, I get my mind maps down, and I go, right, what's happened? And I'm like, Elms, listen, I'm a creator as well. I'm like you. I'm like, focus, focus, focus. Oh, look.
A butterfly.
Yeah. And then listen, I've got the monkey mind. I have got the monkey mind. I'm like, focus, focus, focus. Oh, that's interesting. I'm just gone past. And then I'm like, back. I'm like, okay. My superpower, though, is once I go deep into it, you will not see me. I don't come back out until I get my result. But it takes me a little while to get there. Maybe, for my last album, I started planning my last album 2 years before I actually physically started doing it. 2 years of prepping, of preparing, of writing, of researching, of scripting, of getting ideas, of thinking about it, putting posters up, putting images up, reading books, watching films, making notes. I have piles of notepads, piles of scribbles on paper, a wall. If you look on our page, on the Facebook page, my wall is on there, and you'll see there's pictures, 2 pictures of a wall filled with ideas, images, things on there, just from my thoughts, right? And I would go to work. I booked a studio. I hired a studio, and it was a space. I built a studio in this space, and I kitted it all out. And for the first 6 months, I would meditate in that room. I didn't even try and make music. I'd go to the room every day, and I would just meditate. And I would look on the wall, and I would see what kind of inspiration I'd get from it, and I would write shit down, and then I'd watch a DVD, or I'd watch the Defiant ones, the Netflix things, and I would watch movies. I'd watch things that inspired me, and I would write things down, or I'd take a screenshot. And I did that for months. And I just kept putting the stuff on the wall, kept putting notes in my phone, recording things off of TV onto my phone. I did that for months until it just became obvious that the next thing to do was to record something. It was obvious. That's the next. You've got enough information now. You've got the map. I had all the titles of the tracks written down on the wall. No tracks, just the titles' names. They were all written down on the wall, right? And I started to mess around with the idea of the title for the album. I already did the photo shoot a year before. I did the photo shoot for the album a year before. So I have the pictures for my album cover. I've had it for 4 fucking years. I already knew I wanted to do it. So I paid for the photo shoot, everything. Got my friends come down from London, kitted me out, all these photos. All those photos you see on my new website and stuff, that's from that photo session. But the album cover was from that photo session. No one's seen that yet. But that was taken 4 years ago when I looked a lot healthier and thinner, and shit, right? But it was planned. I planned it. And so one of the things that I'm very, very good at is having this idea, putting it down onto paper or imagining it in a scenario, and then taking the steps. The one thing that I've learned is that I know I'm going to go off course. I know that's going to happen. But the other thing I do know is I can get back on course. I just know that's going to happen. And I've known, listen, I made a track on this album. I kept redoing it 7 times, right? I did it the first time. It was like, no. Another time, it's like, no. Another time, like, no. Another time, no. And I gave up. I went home. I just had enough. This one track was going over a period of 6 months. And one of the times when I was doing it, I just gave up. I said, fuck it. I'm just going to go home. Like about 12 o'clock at night, I said, fuck it. I'm just going to go home. I'm just going to leave it. And I was pissed. I was angry. I was agitated. But there was a point in me, and I walked. So I lived about 3 miles from my studio. And I would walk, right? And the walk was my space to meditate on the way to work and on the way home. So on the way to work, I'd be rehearsing what was going to happen, and I'd be reviewing what was going on, right? And on the way home, I'd be thinking about the track, what it needs. And on that walk home, it came to me, right? It just came to me like a bolt of lightning, what that track needed. And it was so clear, right? Because I'd been going on and on and on. And the minute, remember I said about those 2 magic words, right? In the right time, in the right context, those 2 magic words, fuck it, work a treat, right? And it signifies enough is enough. And it was like a clear delineation between where I was and where I was going. And what I was trying to do, I was trying to make a piece of music that I'd done before that was safe for me to do, that I knew I could accomplish. But I knew that that's not what this project was about. And for me to grow as an artist, and to me to get to that next level as an artist, and to come back from being away for 10 years, 7 to 10 years, there's no way I could come back and make a track that I'd made 10 years ago. That wasn't going to be good enough for me. And so I pushed myself to get to this place where it was so uncomfortable that the only thing that was going to get me through was to say, fuck it, I've had enough. And when I said that, something clicked, it switched off. And at that moment, on that walk home, it just was like, the download happened. It's like, and I got my phone out, I started humming bass lines and writing notes down. And by the time I got home, I had a shower, I got a wash, and went back to the studio and finished the tune within 2 days. It was like that. Number 7 was lucky for me. So that's how the process works. It's like you go through it. You're like, you know you're going to fail because failing is part of learning. Failing is part of you growing and understanding, you know, what your limits are, what you're capable of, right? And you have to be able to push yourself in a healthy way. And I will stress, in a healthy way, right? Not everybody is capable of sitting in a space for 2 days, 3 days, not sleeping, not eating. You know, but that is a tool to switch off the conscious mind. You know, there'll be people out there who will tell you that after 2 days of not sleeping, the brain and the mind do something very different.